Okay, and here we are. We're finally at the fun part where you get to use your artistic side. I know it's been a heck of a long slog getting through all the construction stuff, and for all of you who've made it this far, I accommodate you. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of work to sit here and commit to, making all these different shapes and making them look good. But now we get to have a little bit of fun. And you're going to start to see why we spend so much time working on our objects before we started our actual illustration. So since we're going to be building a workstation, we need a couple things. Thing one, we need a desk. And this desk is going to change size as we fit everything together. We may need more, we may need less desk space to make it look good. We're just going to kind of play with it. Other thing we need is we need for this desk to have a wood-esque color. And we're just looking for your standard office-y looking desk. Now, if you want your desk to look metallic or black, the world's your oyster. Next thing is we need a back wall. And for right now, we're just going to start with kind of a very, very pale blue and more like a bluish beige. Because we're kind of looking for something more in that drab office kind of color. We still want it to be vibrant, but we don't want it to look too unique. We want it to look real. So, for those of you guys, whenever you go into offices, there's only so many different colors of neutral beige or light colors that you run into. There's the yellowy beige, the sandy beige, there's the steel or bluish beige, and so forth and so on. And not to go into different paint colors, but in my line of work, I've been in a lot of sad, depressing offices. No windows, you're stuck in a beige cage for 8 hours a day. I make the joke all the time to my wife, every day I get to go to my 8x8 beige prison cell and hang out for 8 hours. But anyways, so here we have a nice color. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to get started. So once we have all that where we like it, we want to take it and we're going to use this little lock guy. And you heard me complaining about earlier. I haven't had the world's greatest luck with it. You'll probably have a different experience than me, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to want to stay locked for me 100% of the time. You may not have that experience at all, and I hope you don't, but it can be a little irritating whenever you're trying to move around things and all of a sudden you're catching other things. But we're going to use it right now just for ease. All right, so there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can bring everything over at once, and I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. Oop, did two of them. And you can place them and size them all, with everything being here. I am nowhere near as big of a fan as that as what we're going to do, which is taking them one at a time. That way we can really focus on where everything's going to go. Because if you look here, we have quite a few things. And yet again, if you go to your standard, office space, most people at their workstations are going to have, quite a few things. And the longer somebody's been in a particular job, usually the more, stuff they have at their desk. For a myriad of different reasons that we're not going to get into employee psychology. But it's called nesting. It means they've been there a while, they feel comfortable, they don't want to go anywhere. So we're going to try and mimic the feeling of a well worked in or well used workstation. But we're going to start with the computer since that's the star of our party. And the size of the computer is really going to set the stage for everything else. Because if you make the computer extremely large, that's actually too large. If we make the computer very big, it would almost be like where we're right up in the workstation, like we're sitting in the chair leaning forward. We're not going to have room for everything else. If we make the computer very small, it's going to look like we're really far away, and then technically we should be seeing things like a keyboard and the back of a chair and a mouse. So just keep in mind, we want something that looks relatively realistic but leaves us enough space to add everything else in. And we're going to start with this size for right now. Now you may be asking yourself, Philip, should I add in a keyboard? Should I add in a mouse? Should I add in the back of a chair? That's more of a stylistic pursuit, whatever you choose to do. What I can tell you in my experience, whenever you're doing front view flat design, some things just don't translate very well. And if you look at like your standard keyboard, whether if it's a Mac or a PC, the front side of that keyboard is pretty much just a bar of whatever color the keyboard is. And it's not going to translate well in terms of what somebody looking at this is going to be like, oh yeah, it's a keyboard, of course. Now, if you were doing something like a more of an angular view or a top down, could you see that keyboard better? Of course. But trying to do something very flat and then trying to come up with some way with shapes to make that keyboard actually look like a keyboard is going to be a ton of work. Yet again, for something that's not going to take up a whole lot of real estate. A mouse you could do. Usually what I find is if you have a mouse, people are going to want to know where the keyboard's at and vice versa. So if I'm going to leave one off, I leave both off. The problem with doing an office chair, and I'll show this to you real quick. We'll do black. Then we'll do like it has like a metal backing. And that's not perfect. And then we'll drop another one in there. And then black it out. So like, let's pretend this is your standard office chair. You know, it's got the padded bit with the fake leather, and then it's got the metal supports on the back, and there are a myriad of different office chairs. This is just, you know, a rough example. Look at how much of the detail of our image we're losing. Can you tell that that's a PC mod anymore? And the answer is no. And you could sit here and you could play and play and play and try and come up with different configurations. Like, let's pretend this is the back and these are now the arms. And does that look better? Yes. But does it look as good as just leaving it off? And the answer is, you know, obviously leaving it off looks better. Now, if you want to, can you leave like a little bump right there? Yes, of course, you most certainly can. But as somebody who's never seen this image before, going to be able to tell, oh, that's the top part of an office chair, because if I was standing X amount of feet away from the desk and in my vision, I would just see the top part of the office chair. Probably not. So anyways, we're going to get back on track, and we have our PC centered on the desk. And now we're going to start bringing things in one at a time. And it doesn't really matter what we bring in first, because we're going to end up moving everything around. But, you know, just pick something that's going to take up a lot of real estate is usually where I like to start. So printers, you know, they usually take up some real estate. And, you know, here we have another question. Printers come in all shapes and sizes. So if you make your printer really small, it's not going to make any sense. If you make it really huge, people are going to think you're back in the 1980s. So just pick a realistic size, and my monitor is probably about maybe half again broader than the size of the printer on my desk. So let's shoot for something like that. Yeah, that looks about right. And we'll give it a little bit of real estate on the desk. I feel pretty good about that. We'll probably end up tweaking that a little bit later, but in general, I think that looks pretty good. Moving along, we have our painting. Let's go ahead and grab him. And we're not going to make him super huge because we do have X amount of real estate. But for right now, we're just going to center him on the printer. And, you know, we'll come to a stylistic question later on about, you know, should things be centered? Should everything be perfect? And the short answer is no, because if you go into an office space, kind of like right now, if you look at my desk, I have my laptop, which is in askew to the left of my desk. I have my secondary monitor, which is at the far extreme at the right side of my desk, also at an askew. I have a lamp, which is pushed all the way off to the side to make room for my microphone. So really my lamp is useless right now, but my microphone's at a comfy space for me to be able to, you know, move around and talk and work the mouse and the keyboard without feeling constricted. You know, nothing is going to line up perfectly. And usually whenever you walk into an office space where everything is perfect, it's either A, not being used, or B, you're dealing with a super A-type personality. Most people, whenever they think of an office space, you know, nothing's going to be lined up right. So we don't have to worry about that right now. I'm kind of just throwing that in there as an excerpt for you guys to keep in the back of your brain. Let's pick something else. Let's go with our pegboard. Let's drop it down. And we did a lot of work on the pegboard, so I'd like to kind of give it a relatively healthy amount of real estate. Not a ton, but enough to where, you know, it highlights all the junk that we did. Because, like, you look at all this, you have the doodle, you have the post-it note, you have the um, trifold kind of brochure thing, you get all the little thumbtacks. That's a good bit of work. So I'm not happy with this size, but I'm not unhappy with the size, so we're just going to leave it there for right now. Let's move right along and let's do our desk lamp. Oop. Guess it didn't get it. And here we have our desk lamp. So the desk lamp is going to be kind of tough to place. And the reason why that is, like my desk lamp is pretty big. But you're going to need to place it in a way to where it's easy for people to tell what it is, but it doesn't just look like you randomly shoved it. You randomly shoved it somewhere. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of do that for right now. I like kind of how it gives the image a little bit of depth having it that way, but I don't like how the bulb is playing with our little thing there. So we may come back and tweak that. Moving right along, let's do our pen cup next. We can just really drop that in just about anywhere. And I'd like to, if I could, I'd like to kind of get it around the pegboard here or around the lamp to kind of give that 3D look to it. Yet again, trying to cause a journey with the viewer's eye. And we're doing, just kind of fiddling around. We're doing a really good job of that over here. Over here, not so much. And you could do some things to kind of help out with that. You could move this picture behind the piece of paper. That kind of looks more realistic. Let's see what else we got. Let's do our bookshelf next. And he's probably going to be a little tough to place. We'll drop him back. Drop him down a little. And I think we're going to do the clock next. I don't really know where the clock's going to feel right for us. Originally whenever I was thinking about this, I was thinking about kind of having it to where the computer covered up a portion of it. And here was kind of my thought process on that. Who uses analog clocks anymore? Everybody's got a clock on their phone, on their computer. If you wear a Apple Watch or a Samsung watch, you're going to have it on there. Or if you still wear a traditional watch, you're going to have it on there. So I do want to cause depth, but at the same time, I don't want to just cause depth for depth's sake. So where my brain is initially at is I'm envisioning the clock partially being covered. Not a lot, but a little bit to kind of display the lack of care about the analog clock. So maybe we'll do something kind of like that. Now, obviously, that makes this whole section look kind of wonky, and we can fix that by just doing something like this and kind of saying that, well, we're not getting to see all of the desk. And we could actually mirror that by coming over here and kind of sort of doing the same thing. And that does kind of give it a cool look, so we may end up sticking with that. But just kind of giving you guys some ideas. So let's go ahead and bring our books. And we'll stack our books up. And you may choose to kind of want to have them hang off a little bit. That gives it kind of a little bit more realistic-y vibe. You may not. And that's all your personal preference. And I think what would be kind of fun is to really kind of play with the sizing on the books by having some really big and some not so big. We're going to see how that looks. So let's grab our plants. We're going to shrink him down to get him into the composition. And we'll play with setting everything up here in a minute. Now what I think would be kind of neat is if we could ungroup just one of the books. Zoom all the way in. And let's see if we can just catch what we need. Group and copy. Move you down. Place you kind of right there. And what we'll do to make you look different is we'll change you to kind of a burgundy. Oh, Canva does not like what I'm doing. You know what? I regret changing that to burgundy because the pot's red. So let's see what else we got in here. No, I don't want to do wood. I'm very close to a green. What about that orange? Assuming Canva will let me find it. Ooh, I am really making Canva mad. Okay, there's that orange. Oh, let's hope I can find that orange again. Oh, I'm getting a little woozy just staring at whatever's going on over there. And yeah, those all look like the same color. So I think that kind of looks neat. Having the book and the plant on top of the book adds a little bit of a realism to it. All right, let's zoom all the way out. And I think we got everything. Let's just do a cursory check. Yeah, outside tape and thumbtacks, and you know, maybe we want to put more on the pegboard. I think we got everything. So this is our starting point for where our workstation is at. Now, our job as graphic designers, artists, whatever you want to refer to yourself as, is to make this look good. And some things we've done have kind of done us some favors already. You know, the bookcase there in the back, it is a lot of darker tones. So what's neat about that is it feels further back than the lighter tones of the monitor up front. Having some layering action going on where the printer's kind of peeking over the picture on the wall, the computer's kind of peeking over the clock there, and having it to where the pegboard and the pens and all that are all stacked together, you know, that's going to give you that depth feel. And you know, the desk is the desk is the desk. You know, it's not really going to have a lot to do. So let's see what we can do to kind of increase that feeling of depth. What if we did something like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Something like that. Now, you can already see a hiccup of what I'm playing with here. Even though bringing forward the desk lamp looks good and trying to blend these over, what's the problem? We have too many grays on too many grays. So we're just going to bring this guy down and leave him alone. We'll probably play with his location specifically a little more, but in general, that's probably about as good as he's going to get. He could get better depending on what we decide to do with the computer. I think we can actually make the computer a little bit bigger, and that's going to be the only thing I really center on the image. The pen cup is the next thing I'm going to look at. I really like the size of the pen cup, so I don't really want to mess with it too much. And that doesn't look bad. Actually, everything in general looks pretty gosh darn good. I think lowering the desk was a good move. I think moving this around a little bit was a good move. I'm not in love with the light bulb, but I don't hate it. I don't think anybody's going to ding you for that not looking however it's supposed to look. I think playing more with this is going to be a good way to go. Kind of like it's like a big picture, kind of hanging up on the wall. Let's see. I actually think we need to make our pegboard just a little bit smaller. Kind of get some spacing with that shelf. And I don't know how I feel about the oversized books. I think they just look funny. So we'll do another round of books. And we're probably going to zoom in to get that looking just right. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. And we have a little bit of space left over on that bookshelf, so if we wanted to, we could actually shrink the whole bookshelf, which isn't necessarily bad or good, it just is. or we could add more to it. I think adding more to it would actually take away from the image, so I'm not going to go that route. And I gotta say, I am pretty pleased with how that looks. I think I'm accomplishing quite a bit in this imagery. Um, I could do a little bit more maybe with the clock. I'm kind of playing with it in my mind, having it half on, half off. I'm not liking that as much the more I'm looking at it. You could also think of maybe centering it. I don't like that as much either. So I think the clock either needs to A, go away, and we just make this big to a point, because at some point it's just going to look silly. That's about right there. And we say that that's our workstation, or if we are going to keep the clock, we play with it in a different way. And if you have the clock really small, it's just going to look beyond stupid. Yeah, so in general, I don't like the clock anymore, even after building it and working with it. And I think this looks really good. If I maybe made some adjustments, I mean, the bucks look a little teeny tiny, and how you would fix that is really simple. You'd pull this guy down, and you'd have to pull this guy down as well. And just kind of have it all kind of come in, and then make it bigger. Which means you're going to be changing a lot of little things. So let's play with it. Let's see what that would look like. And we need to bring all these guys back down. Oh, we left something behind. You know, I don't hate this. I think this looks good. All right. So in my opinion, I think this looks great. Yet again, you're welcome to come up with your own opinion of what you think it should be or how things should be arranged. But I'm pretty pleased. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to pull a copy of this off, and I'm going to save it on my desktop for right now, and then we're going to play with a couple other things. Alrighty, and we'll get this over to my desktop, and boom, that is saved. Okay, so other things that we can play with to kind of round out this image. We don't have any shadow work anywhere in this image, and how you would add that is really simple. You're just going to make a copy of whatever you like and kind of bring it down a little bit. Then you're going to change all the colors to black, which is going to be a little difficult to do. I probably shouldn't say all the colors that would have any visibility. So we don't really need to worry about the cloud or the sun or anything like that. And then once you get it where you like it, you just send it back. And then we're going to adjust the transparency, maybe to about 40%, and then we're going to play with it until it pokes its head out. Oh, may have lost it there. Yeah, it did. No big deal. We can illustrate the same thing just by moving this around a little. And you see right there, we have a shadow of our photo that's hanging on the wall, our picture that's hanging on the wall. So let's talk about shadows and lining up shadows. Anytime you're in an illustration and you make a shadow, all other shadows have to follow the light source rule. So what does that mean? Whatever is the light source, whatever is the imaginary light source depicts the direction that all the shadows will go. So if you have your light source up here, all the shadows should stretch down this way. Let me give you an example. If I take a copy of my computer and I kind of put them like so. And let's change a couple things. And drop them back. Boom. There's our shadow, and then let's thin it out a little bit. Yeah, it's good enough for example purposes. Okay, so this shadow and this shadow match. That's good. The problem that we're running into now is this shadow down here on the foot doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So now we have to get our hands on that shadow, ungroup, go find it, delete it, and we could leave the one on the triangle. That's not really hurting anything. And there we go. Now we have our rough shadow. Now you can already see some problems with this plan, right? What do we have left over from our illustration? All the little doodles and drawings. So we'll have to go in there and clean those up. Like here's the triangle bit. So that needs to go bye-bye. And I don't know what that is, but that needs to go bye-bye. We'll stretch that guy up. And there we go. So ask yourself now, students, how does that feel? Does that feel good to you, having that shadow? And that's not something I can answer for you. That's just something that you're going to answer to yourself stylistically. If it looks good and you like it, you're going to have to do it everywhere. If you prefer a flatter image, or you prefer the shadow to go a different direction and have your artificial light source come from somewhere else, that's kind of all just personal preference. I've seen a lot of flat design stuff where they will take a circle, kind of flatten it out like that, go underneath the monitor, thin it up a lot, and position it behind everything like there's a light immediately above. If done well, it looks really good. If done poorly, it looks like there's some strange disk underneath the computer. So anyways, this is all just a stylistic question. Do you like shadows? Do you not like shadows? For me, a lot of times it's just a coin toss. Whether or not I think it's going to add to the image or take away from the image. In this particular context, I think that it's going to end up taking away from the image. Let me see, where are we at? Yep, okay, we're getting back to where we were. So anyways, in this particular context, I think it's just going to take away from the image because I think this looks very vibrant. It looks very clean. If I could change anything, I would probably be tempted to make this more of a true beige. The problem I have, kind of playing with it as more of a true beige, it just, God, does not look as good as having that pale blue back there. The problem with the pale blue is we're blending a lot with what's in our imagery. So let's say we stick to this kind of steely lavender beige. That doesn't look too bad. The desk, I could take it or leave it. Another thing that a lot of people do is they'll throw a shadow behind the desk. And it's a little proud, but they'll do something like that. And yet again, that's a stylistic preference. Do you want your desk to look like it has a little bit of a lip? I don't, but yet again, you can do whatever you like. So that is going to bring us to a conclusion on this project. I hope you had a fun time learning with me and learning about doing front view flat design. I hope that if there was something on here you said, well, I think the printer would look better on the right hand side, or the shelf would look better over here as opposed to over there, or man, I really like that clock. I'd rather dump the picture and have the clock. Make it your own, enjoy it, have fun, play with this. And also, if you're looking at this from a commercial aspect, say to yourself, how am I arranging these objects to convey what I'm trying to accomplish in my Facebook post for a commercial purpose? Let's say you were using this for like a recruiting ad, and the typography was something like, could you imagine yourself in this workstation, whatever salary, whatever benefits, everything else, or if you were looking at somebody who was interested in, say, like a a developer's job or whatever else. Maybe as opposed to doing a website here, you would do like a terminal code setup. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with code, whenever you work in a terminal, it's going to be a dark screen, usually with green or some other color of typing, and it looks like the images that you see in movies and everything else of somebody coding. Kind of think about all those different things. If you're using this for sales, what is this image trying to convey? Maybe as opposed to having the website here, you'd have your logo, whatever it may be. But anyways, I hope you guys use this as a starting off point and understand that illustrations, graphic design, flat design, whatever it may be, is a journey. And this is just the beginning of the journey. And I hope you go on to be very successful and fulfill yourself commercially, creatively, whatever you're trying to do. But thank you guys for taking the course. And I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see y'all later.